She left when you loved her the most. Now she's back acting like nothing happened. But here's the truth. Most men learn too late. Some people return not because they changed, but because they lost access to you. Before you open that door again, listen carefully. A second chance sounds romantic, but not every return deserves a welcome. Sometimes going back only reopens wounds you worked hard to heal. In this video, we'll break down 6 brutal truths about why accepting her back can destroy your peace, your confidence, and your future. And once you understand these lessons, you'll never want her back again. Number 1. The second chance myth. People love the idea of starting over. Most men sit alone at night replaying old memories after she comes back into their life, because part of them still wants to believe the pain meant something, and that maybe this time she finally understands their value. But the hard truth is that emotions can make a man forget the very disrespect that destroyed his peace in the first place. And that is exactly why so many men end up trapped in the same cycle again, because they confuse missing someone with trusting someone. They confuse loneliness with love, and they confuse temporary attention with genuine change. And she knows this because when she reaches back out, she rarely talks about the sleepless nights she caused you. She rarely takes full accountability for how she treated you when she had access to your loyalty. Instead, she appears softer, calmer, more emotional because she senses your energy changing, and she notices you are no longer begging for her validation the way you once did, and suddenly she wants another chance. Suddenly she remembers your worth after ignoring it for so long. But Stoicism teaches you to observe actions instead of drowning in emotions, because emotions are temporary while patterns reveal truth. And if she only values you after distance, then her attraction is tied to losing access to you, instead of appreciating you while she had you. And that is not the foundation of a healthy relationship. That is someone responding to absence and scarcity, and many men destroy their progress because they become addicted to the fantasy of finally getting the love they begged for before. But the truth is, if a woman only respects you after you walk away, then she never truly respected your presence from the beginning. She respected your absence. And there is a massive difference between those two things, because genuine loyalty does not suddenly appear after consequences arrive. Genuine loyalty is visible during the moments when you are stressed, struggling, tired, building your future, and trying to hold your life together. But many women leave during those phases because they chase comfort, excitement, and emotional convenience while expecting you to remain emotionally available no matter how badly they treat you. And when you finally stop chasing and begin rebuilding your life, she returns because she senses your emotional independence growing stronger. She notices you no longer revolve around her approval, and now your attention becomes valuable because it is no longer easy to control. And this is where many men fail, because instead of protecting the new version of themselves, they reopen the same door that once destroyed their confidence, discipline, and peace, hoping this time the outcome changes. But Stoic discipline means accepting reality instead of romanticizing potential. It means understanding that someone can miss you deeply and still not be healthy for your future. It means recognizing that your compassion should never overpower your self-respect, because every time you ignore your standards just to keep someone in your life, you teach yourself that your boundaries are negotiable, and once a man loses respect for his own boundaries, he slowly loses respect for himself, and that pain spreads into every part of his life because he becomes weaker in his decisions, weaker in his focus, and weaker in the way he carries himself, which is why this situation is bigger than just her coming back. This is about whether you finally become the kind of man who values peace over temporary emotions and discipline over emotional weakness, because the second chance myth destroys countless men who believe love alone is enough to fix broken patterns, when in reality, love without trust, respect and accountability only creates another cycle of pain with a different beginning. Number 2. She left during your lowest point. This tells you everything. Most men spend years giving their loyalty to women who only love the finished product while ignoring the sacrifice it takes to become that man. And the painful truth is that she often leaves when your life becomes difficult, because hardship exposes who is truly with you for your soul and who is only with you for comfort, status, attention, or emotional entertainment. And many men try to excuse her behavior by saying she was confused or overwhelmed or needed space. But deep down, they know the truth, because when you are mentally exhausted, financially struggling, emotionally drained, and trying to rebuild yourself, that is when you discover who genuinely values your presence. And too many men experience the same brutal pattern, where she slowly becomes distant the moment life stops feeling easy. She stops replying with the same energy, stops supporting your vision, stops speaking to you with respect, and eventually treats you like your pain is an inconvenience, instead of standing beside you while you rebuild your life. And what destroys a man emotionally is not just her leaving, it is the realization that he would never abandon her during her darkest moments. Because most men love with loyalty, while many women love based on emotions and circumstances. And that truth cuts deep, because you begin questioning your own value, wondering why your sacrifices were ignored while your mistakes were magnified. But Stoicism teaches something powerful here. It teaches that another person's actions reveal their character, not your worth, because weak people run when situations become uncomfortable, while disciplined people remain grounded in loyalty and principle. And once you understand this, your entire mindset changes, because you stop begging people to stay and start paying attention to who naturally stands beside you without conditions attached. And this becomes one of the biggest turning points in a man's life, because pain finally forces him to stop chasing external validation and start building internal strength. Suddenly the gym becomes more than muscles. Silence becomes more than loneliness. Discipline becomes more than routine. And isolation becomes the place where he reconnects with himself after spending years losing his identity trying to keep someone else happy. And this is why many women become shocked after leaving, because they expect the man they abandoned to stay broken while waiting for another chance. But instead he starts transforming his life. His mindset sharpens, his emotions stabilize, his confidence grows, and his standards rise. And now she notices the very strength she ignored while she had access to him. And many men need to understand this clearly. A woman who abandons you during your lowest point often returns once your life improves, because she wants access to the benefits of your transformation without carrying the weight of the struggle that created it. And that realization should change how you see relationships forever, because you stop measuring love through words and start measuring it through consistency during difficult times. Because anybody can stand beside you when life is easy, but true loyalty reveals itself when there is pressure, uncertainty, and discomfort. And once a man understands this, he stops tolerating emotionally unstable behavior and begins protecting his peace with discipline, emotional control, and self-respect. Because he finally realizes his life becomes stronger the moment he stops trying to earn loyalty from people who only value him when he is winning. That is why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men, filled with timeless Stoic principles that help you rebuild your mindset, control your emotions, reclaim your self-respect, and become emotionally unshakable in relationships. And it is now also available in the audiobook version, so you can listen to this life-changing knowledge while walking alone at night, training in the gym, jogging or driving, because the strongest men rebuild themselves daily through wisdom and discipline. The link is in the comments, and the powerful part is this book will always belong to you for life, meaning you can return to these lessons whenever life tests you again. while the Stoic Relationship Blueprint course for men is also launching in the coming weeks for those who want even deeper transformation and practical guidance to completely change the direction of their lives. Comment Blueprint right now to get early access before the launch, because the version of you that finally masters emotional control, self-respect and discipline starts with the knowledge you choose to absorb today. Number 3. Your peace matters more. You fought hard to rebuild yourself. Most men never speak about the silent damage caused by constantly dealing with a woman who drains their energy, confuses their mind, and keeps them trapped in emotional instability, because society tells men to suppress their pain while continuing to tolerate behavior that slowly destroys their confidence, focus, and self-worth. And many men stay too long in toxic situations because they become emotionally attached to potential instead of reality. They keep hoping she will suddenly become softer, more loyal, more understanding, while ignoring the anxiety, overthinking and emotional exhaustion they experience every single day dealing with her inconsistency. And this is where Stoic principles completely transform a man's life, because Stoicism teaches emotional discipline, self-control and clarity. It teaches you to stop allowing temporary emotions to control permanent decisions. And once a man applies this mindset, he begins understanding that protecting his peace is not selfish. It is necessary for survival, because a distracted man cannot build a powerful life. An emotionally drained man cannot lead himself properly, and a man constantly chasing validation from a woman who disrespects him slowly abandons his purpose, his discipline, and his identity, trying to hold on to someone who keeps showing him through actions that she does not value him the same way he values her. And the painful reality is that many women lose respect for men who tolerate too much emotional chaos, because desperation weakens attraction, while self-respect strengthens it. And this is why your peace must become your priority. Because once you reclaim your emotional stability, your entire life starts changing. You sleep better, think clearer, move differently, and carry yourself with more confidence, because your energy is no longer being consumed by constant emotional confusion. And many men notice that after walking away from toxic relationships, they suddenly become more productive, healthier, more disciplined and mentally stronger, because they finally remove the emotional weight holding them down for years. And that transformation is powerful because it reminds you who you were before constantly worrying about someone else's mixed signals, disrespect or emotional games. And many women only realize your value after you stop giving them unlimited access to your time and energy, because they become uncomfortable once they can no longer control your emotions the way they once did. Suddenly, you are no longer reacting instantly, no longer chasing conversations, no longer sacrificing your peace just to keep her comfortable. And that shift changes everything, because now she sees a man who values himself enough to walk away from situations that damage his spirit. And whether she admits it or not, that level of emotional discipline earns respect, because most men remain trapped in cycles of emotional dependency, while very few develop the strength to choose solitude, growth and inner peace over temporary emotional attachment. And this is why your pain can become the greatest thing that ever happened to you if you use it correctly, because it forces you to rebuild your standards, your mindset and your identity from the ground up, and eventually you stop craving people who once hurt you, because you realize peace feels better than emotional instability ever did. And once a man reaches that level mentally, he becomes dangerous in the best possible way, because he is no longer controlled by loneliness, emotional weakness, or the need for external validation. He becomes grounded, focused, and emotionally free, and that freedom changes the direction of his entire life forever. Number 4. She misses the benefits. Most men struggle to accept this truth because their heart still wants to believe she misses them as a person. But many times, she does not miss you the way you think she does. She misses the emotional comfort you gave her, the attention you provided every single day, the safety of knowing someone loyal was always available to listen to her problems, calm her emotions, and make her life easier while asking for almost nothing in return. And this is where many men destroy themselves emotionally because they confuse being useful with being loved. They spend years carrying relationships on their back, believing sacrifice alone will eventually earn genuine appreciation. But many women become comfortable receiving effort without ever respecting the man providing it. And this reality hits hard because you begin realizing she only starts valuing your presence after losing access to the benefits you brought into her life. Suddenly she notices the silence, notices nobody checks on her the way you did, nobody gives her emotional stability the way you did, nobody listens to her problems with the same patience and loyalty. And now she starts reaching back out, not necessarily because her character changed, but because your absence creates discomfort in her life. And many men fail to understand this because they are emotionally attached to the idea that love should automatically create loyalty. But Stoic thinking teaches you to separate emotions from reality and pay attention to behavior instead of words. Because words are easy during loneliness, while consistency reveals true intentions. And if she only appreciates your value after you remove your attention, then she was never respecting your presence properly while she had it. She was consuming the benefits while emotionally investing as little as possible, and this happens to countless men who become trapped in one-sided dynamics where they are constantly giving reassurance, emotional support, financial help, loyalty, patience and understanding while receiving confusion, inconsistency, and emotional instability in return. And many men tolerate this because they fear loneliness more than disrespect. They would rather remain emotionally drained than face life alone. But this mindset slowly destroys a man from the inside, because every time you continue accepting less than what you deserve, you train yourself to believe your needs do not matter, and eventually your entire identity becomes built around keeping other people comfortable while neglecting your own mental peace. And women often sense this weakness, because when a man becomes too emotionally dependent on keeping her around, she stops respecting his boundaries. She notices he will tolerate almost anything just to avoid losing her, and that imbalance creates a dangerous dynamic where she gains emotional control while he slowly loses himself trying to maintain the relationship. And this is why Stoic discipline becomes life-changing for men, because it teaches emotional detachment from things outside your control. It teaches you to stop chasing validation from people who only value you when it benefits them. And once you apply this mindset, your standards begin rising, because you stop looking at relationships through desperation and start looking at them through clarity. Suddenly you realize how many times you ignored obvious signs because your emotions were stronger than your logic. You remember all the times she disappeared emotionally when you needed support, all the times she expected endless patience while offering little accountability, all the times she wanted access to your attention without reciprocating your loyalty properly. And now you begin understanding why your peace disappeared during that relationship, because you were constantly pouring energy into someone who enjoyed the benefits of your presence while giving you uncertainty in return. And many women become shocked when a man finally stops tolerating this behavior, because they are used to men remaining emotionally available no matter how badly they are treated. They expect you to continue replying instantly, continue giving reassurance, continue being emotionally dependable while they put minimal effort into maintaining the relationship. But once you emotionally detach and redirect your focus toward your purpose, health, discipline, and future, the entire dynamic changes, because now she experiences what life looks like without your energy constantly supporting her emotionally. And that absence creates pressure, because many women never fully appreciate stable masculine energy until it disappears. They overlook the consistency, patience, and emotional grounding you provided because they assumed it would always be available. But once you remove access to it, they suddenly recognize how rare it actually was. And this is why many men receive messages months later from women who once ignored them, because she misses the emotional security and attention you provided while she searched elsewhere for excitement, validation, or temporary emotions. And this realization should completely transform the way you see yourself, because your value as a man should never be measured by whether one woman stays or leaves. Your value is built through your discipline, your principles, your ability to remain grounded under pressure, and your refusal to abandon yourself for temporary attachment. And once you understand this deeply, your life changes because you stop begging for appreciation and start becoming selective with who receives access to your energy. And this is where true masculine growth begins, because you no longer chase people who overlook your worth. You become focused on building a life so disciplined, peaceful, and purposeful that anyone entering it must bring genuine respect, loyalty, and consistency, or they simply lose access to you completely. And that mindset changes everything, because now your relationships are no longer built on emotional dependency. They are built on standards, self-respect, and emotional control. And once a man reaches that level mentally, he stops becoming easy to manipulate, because he finally understands one of the hardest truths in life. Many women do not miss the man himself at first. They miss the benefits he provided after they no longer have access to them. And if a man ignores this reality, he risks reopening doors that lead him right back into the emotional exhaustion he worked so hard to escape. Number 5. She came back after your growth. This is the biggest sign. Most men spend years trying to prove their value to a woman who only notices them after they stop chasing her. And that truth changes a man forever, because he begins realizing she was never truly attracted to his loyalty during the difficult phases of his life. She became attracted to the results that appeared after his transformation, after the discipline, after the silence, after the loneliness forced him to rebuild himself into someone stronger, calmer, and emotionally harder to control. And this is why so many men become confused when she suddenly returns after months of distance, because during the relationship she overlooked their effort, questioned their worth, ignored their sacrifices, and treated their attention like something ordinary. But once they finally pull away and focus entirely on themselves, she starts watching closely. She notices the physical changes, the emotional control, the confidence in his voice, the discipline in his routine, and the peace in his energy. And now she wants access again, because growth changes how the world responds to a man, especially women. And many men do not understand this until pain forces them into self-improvement, because before the heartbreak they were emotionally available, overly forgiving, constantly explaining themselves, and desperately trying to keep the relationship alive while slowly abandoning their own purpose. But after enough disappointment, something inside them shifts permanently. They stop seeking constant validation, stop chasing conversations that go nowhere, stop lowering their standards just to avoid loneliness, and suddenly they become dangerous in the best possible way, because now their self-worth no longer depends on female approval. And this is where many women become uncomfortable, because they sense they can no longer emotionally control the man they once took for granted. They sense his attention is no longer guaranteed, and scarcity changes perception instantly, because many women do not fully value a man while he is emotionally available at all times. They begin valuing him once his energy becomes difficult to access, and this realization destroys many men emotionally, because they finally understand that the same woman who ignored their loyalty suddenly respects the version of them that became emotionally detached, disciplined, and focused on purpose, and that pain becomes fuel for transformation. Because now a man starts seeing life differently. He begins understanding that his suffering was never meaningless, It was the pressure that forced him to evolve into someone stronger, and Stoic thinking becomes powerful here because Stoicism teaches a man to stop complaining about pain and instead use pain as a tool for growth. It teaches emotional control under pressure, discipline during loneliness, and clarity during emotional confusion. And once a man applies these principles consistently, his entire reality changes because he no longer wakes up obsessing over who left him. Instead, he wakes up focused on building his body, strengthening his mind, increasing his income, protecting his peace, and becoming a man whose life no longer revolves around female validation. And this transformation terrifies many women because they realize the emotional access they once had is disappearing permanently. They realize another woman will eventually benefit from the wisdom, strength, and emotional maturity they ignored while they had the chance. And now she returns trying to reconnect with the very man she once undervalued. But many men make the mistake of confusing her return with genuine loyalty, when in reality her attraction is often tied to the growth she now witnesses, because women are naturally drawn to strength, emotional stability, discipline and confidence, and many times they only recognize those qualities after hardship shapes a man into someone more grounded and emotionally disciplined. And this is why men must become extremely careful after growth, because success and self-improvement often attract people who ignored you during your weakest phases. Suddenly she wants to check on you again. Suddenly she compliments your mindset. Suddenly she notices qualities she once dismissed. But the important question every man must ask himself is simple. Where was this energy when I needed support instead of admiration? Where was this respect when I was struggling emotionally and trying to build my future? Because loyalty means very little if it only appears after results become visible. And this is where many men finally reclaim their power, because they stop romanticizing women who return after the hard part is over. They stop believing every apology deserves renewed access to their life, and instead they begin evaluating people based on consistency, accountability, and genuine respect. And this level of emotional maturity changes everything, because now relationships no longer control them emotionally. They no longer panic at the thought of losing someone who failed to value them properly, because they understand their greatest transformation began after being abandoned. And that realization creates a deep inner strength that many men never develop until life breaks them emotionally. Because pain forces introspection, isolation, forces discipline and heartbreak, forces a man to finally confront the uncomfortable truth that he neglected himself for too long, trying to save relationships with women who were never equally invested in him. And once he understands this, his mindset sharpens permanently. He stops over-explaining himself, stops begging for understanding, stops sacrificing his mental peace for temporary attachment, and begins carrying himself with quiet confidence, because he knows exactly what he survived to become this version of himself. And many women sense this change immediately, because his energy is different now, calmer but harder, emotionally stable but less accessible, kind but no longer weak. And that combination becomes magnetic because grounded masculine energy stands out in a world full of emotionally unstable behavior and endless validation-seeking. And this is why your growth becomes your greatest revenge without needing revenge at all, because while she expected heartbreak to destroy you, it actually rebuilt you into someone stronger than before, someone more disciplined, more focused, and more aware of his own value. And once a man reaches this level mentally, he stops seeing heartbreak as the end of his story. He sees it as the painful beginning of his transformation, because the version of him she abandoned no longer exists anymore, and the new version understands something that changes his life forever. Never allow someone to enjoy the final product of your growth when they disrespected the painful process that created it. Weak men are taught to chase validation, while strong men learn emotional control, discipline, and self-respect. which is exactly why the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men exists, filled with timeless Stoic principles that will transform your life immediately. And it is now available in the audiobook version, so you can absorb this life-changing knowledge while walking, training, jogging or driving, because the world benefits when men stay emotionally distracted instead of mentally strong and grounded. The link is in the comments, and I am also working on the Stoic Relationship Blueprint course launching in the coming weeks, built from more than 2,000 years of Stoic principles that have stood the test of time, teaching men how to master their emotions, protect their peace, and apply this wisdom directly to their lives and relationships, before life forces them to learn these lessons through more pain and regret. Comment Stoic Mindset. If you are ready to take control of your life, like this video and subscribe to help more men wake up to these truths before they waste years giving loyalty to people who never deserved it.